Okay, I'm going to go over the three main parts of logic. The three major parts of studying logic are terms, propositions, and arguments. Okay, first of all, if you look on your textbook of Socratic logic, the textbook for the course, on page 26 and 27, you have a summary, an overview, is what he says, of all of logic on these two pages. So, as you read those two pages, don't expect that you're going to master it or understand it fully. He's just giving you an overview. So, it's in your mind of all the basic points of logic. Of course, even in even in this summary, we will not be covering all of it in this course due to time restraints. But you want to read page 26 and 27 just to get an overview of all the main points of logic. Okay, so moving on to page 29. On page 29, it's very important at the top, just so that you understand the three main points of logic, these three parts of logic, because I'm going to just be mentioning these throughout the rest of the course. On the top of page 29, it has this terms, propositions, and arguments. Okay, and then beneath the terms, propositions, and arguments, there's three more numbers. There's 1, 2, and 3. There's for words, declarative sentences, and paragraphs. In other words, terms, which is the first part of logic, are generally represented by words. Not generally, they are represented by words. Okay? Propositions are sentences, not just any sentence, the declarative sentence. Okay? So propositions are basically sentences that are declaring something. And then an argument is typically a small paragraph, or sometimes it depends how much arguments you have bundled together, it could be a large paragraph. Okay, so, and then the author on page 29 goes into examples, which are the examples I'm going to put on the board right now. Okay, an example of each one of these three main points of logic right here. All right. So terms, and by the way, this is just an overview, okay, of the three parts of logic. The first part of logic that we're going to spend a little time on are terms. And then the second part of logic that we're going to spend some time on are propositions. And then the third part of logic we'll spend time on are arguments. Okay? So right now I'm just going to give you an example of each so that you have in your mind of what we will be going through in this class as far as the logic portion of the class. So an example of a term, the example that Kreeft gives in the book is man. So let me just erase these. So an example of term is man. That's a term. It's just a word, right? What's another example of a term? Woman. Another example of a term is pencil. Terms don't have to be just one word. They could be many words. So if I say brown pencil, that is also a term. Okay? If it's in a proposition, which we'll see in a second. So in other words, a term can be two words. A term can be more than two words. If I say brown pencil that is in my hand, that is also a term. Notice, brown pencil that is in my hand, that is not a complete sentence. Okay? This would, if it was in a proposition, it would be considered a term. Okay? My only point here is that a term can be longer than just one word. Okay? And we'll see that, and you'll understand that more as you see these terms in propositions. Let's see. So the next thing we're going to go over, or I'll give you an example of, is a proposition. Now the example that Kreeft gives in the Socratic logic text is Socrates is a man. That is, if you were in English class, that could be considered a declarative sentence. Okay? It is a complete sentence. Period at the end. Okay? Socrates is a man. Another example of a proposition which would be a declarative sentence in English would be the marker is black. That's a complete sentence. One of the characteristics about a proposition is that it could be true or false. Okay? So Socrates is a man can be true or false. The marker is black can be true or false. That's how you test to see if something is a proposition or not. Okay? What if I said is the marker blue? Is the marker blue? Now, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make full sense to say as an answer to that question, true, false. Okay? How would you answer the question? You'd answer the question by giving the answer. Right? No, it's not blue, it's red or whatever. Okay? But you wouldn't answer the question by true or false. All right, it doesn't. Is the marker blue? True. Is the marker blue? False. That is not the correct way to respond to this question. In fact, with this question, you can't really see the absurdity as you can with other questions. And what about this question? What if you are ordering something at a restaurant and the waiter comes up to you and they ask you, okay, what would you like to eat? What would you like to order? And you say true. Right? Would that make any sense? What kind of look would you get from the waiter? You're thinking, whoa, what do you mean? They'd be thinking to themselves, what are you talking about? I just asked what you wanted to eat and you said true. You see? Because questions cannot be true or false. Okay? Only propositions can be true or false. All right? So how you tell a proposition is when you say true or false, it actually makes sense. Okay? So these are propositions. What are some more propositions? You say thousands of propositions every day. The computer is turned on. That's a proposition. Okay? Bananas are yellow. That's a proposition. There's propositions. Every time you say a proposition in some argument that you make, which you do every day, okay, when you say those things, you are declaring something true or you're declaring something false. All right, propositions. That's the second main part of logic. In other words, there's basically three areas. When you study logic, the main areas that you're studying are terms, propositions, and arguments. And I'm going to give you an argument right now. Now, in the textbook, the argument that's given by Kreeft, the author of the textbook, is the most famous argument. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. Okay. This is just a basic syllogism, what we would say. It's a basic argument. See, notice how many propositions does it have? It has 1, 2, 3 propositions. So arguments contain propositions. And what do those propositions contain? Terms. This is a term right here. That's another term. Here's a term right here. This is another term. Here's another term. This term is found here. Here's another term, and this term is found over here. So propositions contain terms. Okay, these terms are easy because these terms they're not multiple words. Okay, so in this argument, I have 3 propositions. These 2 right here are the premises. Okay, so I have 2 premises, and this right here is the conclusion. How can I tell it's the conclusion? Because it has a conclusion indicator, the word therefore. Okay, so this argument, what we do in logic is we study arguments, right? And when we deal with arguments, especially when you're taking a logic course, is you try to find out if the arguments are valid or invalid, which is what we'll be doing. All that means is that you find out whether the argument has good form. Okay, if it has good form, then that's good, right? You don't want an argument with bad form. All right. So those are the main parts of logic that we'll be going over in this course.